Good morning. This is Blair with the Live and Learn Gardening channel, and I wanted to walk you through my early August garden. I was planning on doing just one this month, but I might fit into the weather was pretty nice today, and or at least this morning. It's not 100 degrees yet, and I thought, what the heck, let me do a quick tour. There are quite a few things going on in the garden right now, even though it is August. Some things are more on the dormant side, some things are doing okay because they just are heat loving. So let's take a look at what's going on. It is just to give you an idea of where we're at. I'm in zone 8B. I'm in Austin, Texas, in the central Texas region. But it's really our summers, I think, that define our climate. We are going on over 30 days of over 100 degrees in temperature. And I just looked at the 10-day forecast, and we have at least another 10 days of 100 degrees coming up. And usually, if you look at the historic trend, pretty much all of August is 100 degrees. So we've had over 30 days of 100 degrees so far, and we're liable to have another 30 100-degree days for the rest of August. And then usually somewhere in mid-September or so, things will start to cool off. So we've still got a few more waves of heat coming, but those will be waves of heat versus this is like a solid wall of heat through July this year and August in general. So let's get started. I'll show you kind of what a few of my plants are in distress, I will point out, because I have not watered them this last week. It was basically too hot for me to get out here even. And there's a couple of things that aren't on automated watering that are struggling a little bit, and I'll show you those. All right, let's get started. This is my pepper bed, and it's actually doing pretty well. I will note I have allowed this vine. There's actually two vines on top of my peppers. This is a cucamelon, and this one over here with the heart shape. So the cucamelon's got these almost cucumber-like leaves, and these heart-shaped leaves are morning glories. And I've let these two plants, I'm probably going to have to tear that one out though, it's getting a little excessive. I've let these two vines kind of grow over the pepper plants, and I'll probably let them, at least in part, continue to do so through August, because I actually think they're protecting the plants a little bit and keeping the extreme heat off of them. There are quite a few peppers here under this. There's also, actually, this is kind of incredible. This is my basil plant, and there is, a little bit of sun scald and other damage, but this is a really healthy basil plant for the middle of August in Texas. I think this is one of my things I'm most proud of. Usually my basil is completely dead by now. This is cardinal basil, which actually does do really well in the heat. I highly recommend using this basil in August, or in Texas in general. Put it in a decent amount of shade, and highly recommend this one. This is my Genoese basil. It is in almost full shade, and it's doing okay, but I will say it's starting to look a little woody, versus this guy I think is doing excellent. So highly recommend the cardinal basil for Texas. Another thing that I'm a huge fan of in Texas right now, these are maturing kind of small right now, and a little bit, they're changing colors really quickly, so they're maturing very quickly. But these are shishito peppers. I've absolutely loved these this season. A little tough to see right now, but and the peppers are a little bit smaller this time of year. Usually they're about twice this size, but the plant overall is doing really well. And I think once things cool down in September, that we're going to get a bumper kind of additional crop out of my 3 shishito peppers here. I may need to cut back a little bit of the vines. There's a third one in there. It's just totally shaded. Another thing that's doing really well and has historically done really well, again, has smaller peppers this time of year, but I think that's just due to the stress. This is a Hungarian sweet banana pepper, and it's doing really well as well. I mean, there's tons of peppers on the plant. I just picked a bunch, did a video earlier this week, and there's still tons of them on there. They're maturing a little bit smaller, but the plant is still producing, even though it's the middle of August, which just tells me that is an appropriate pepper plant for Texas. My bell peppers are struggling a little bit more. Largely, my biggest concern with them really is actually stink bugs. They've been sucking the life out of the peppers, basically. And so once I get them off the plant, they actually don't taste very good, which is which is very unfortunate. But I'm hoping, again, these guys will over summer, so to speak, and then I'll get a nice bell pepper crop in the fall. This is kind of an interesting item for me right now. These are my bean plants. They're the ones that have survived so far this summer, and they seem actually pretty healthy and robust, and they've just started putting on new flowers. One thing that I noticed, though, and again, I think this is due to stress, is the beans themselves usually are about twice this, or maybe even 3 times this length, and a lot thicker. The beans that are maturing on the plant, and again, I think this is just due to stress, are really small and they shrivel up quite quickly. So the plant is producing lots of little green beans, but I think it's just a stress response. They're trying to get some seeds out there into the world, but the beans themselves aren't great. Though, wow, there's quite a few on that one. I might be able to make a meal out of that. Cool. It's a pleasant surprise, basically, this time of year. Any crop that I can get right now in August in Texas is huge to me. I mean, I would call this garden a huge success, even though a lot of things are in distress and they're smaller versions of their normal selves. Gardening in Texas in the summer is interesting. Everything is under a lot of stress, and so just anything you can eke out of it is great. And then I'm hoping to keep a couple of these plants through to the fall, or at least have them over the soil so they're protecting the soil through the fall. And then I will pull out the things that are not capable of really producing anything else, probably these bean plants, and replace them with either new bean plants or whatever else is on my list. I'm actually going to do a what to plant in August. August is a tough time to plant, but there are a few things you can still plant. And mostly I'm going to focus on what you can plant in September in Texas, and also what you might want to get started in August in order to plant it in September. That's seed starting kind of indoors. So you're going to do most of your seed starting indoors because it is so hot outside right now that seedlings don't really stand a chance. Right now, I've let this cucamelon plant kind of take over this bed. It is pretty healthy. It's not producing any cucamelons, but the plant looks really healthy, and it is currently shading the soil, which I am thrilled about. That is plenty enough for me, even if I don't get any cucamelons off of it. Though, if I remember correctly, the cucamelons, there's a baby right there. The cucamelons will, oh, see, it fell right off. Will probably produce a little later in the season. I'll have to look back to last year. I think it was like August or something that I actually started getting cucamelons last year, and I had planted them a lot earlier. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get some in the fall. Maybe I'll end up ripping these out and putting something else in these beds for the fall. Here is something that is doing quite well, actually, besides peppers. Those are more peppers. This is my melon plant. The plant itself is okay, but I do think pests are getting to it. This little guy has not gotten any bigger, so I think it was not completely fertilized. And see, there's one right there. I think pests or animals are getting to these plants, and so I don't know if I'll get any melons off of them, but the plant looks okay. So I'm going to leave it. Maybe it starts to produce later in the year. Maybe it survives to the fall and produces a few melons toward the end of its summer season. My eggplants look amazing. They are really doing well in this climate. And yeah, they have a little bit of distress on the leaves. That looks like bug pest damage, but they are still producing lots of beautiful eggplants. And I would probably pick them a lot smaller because they tend to go bitter very quickly in the summer, and they'll mature at a much smaller size. So I keep them well watered. These are fairy tailing plants, and I pick them a lot younger, but the eggplants are producing really, really well right now. I thought I had a massive eggplant bush last year, but this one is unreal. That's one whole plant. It goes all the way to the ground there and all the way up. Now, have I gotten a single eggplant off of it? No, I haven't. But this guy right here looks promising. It's an interesting shape too. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the variety for this eggplant because I've never seen one like this before. So kind of cool. But the plant is huge. I mean, Back up a few feet here. That is all one plant. Up there, that's another melon plant, and in the very center, that's a watermelon. But everything else, everything with these big leaves, all the way down, even that bit over there, and all the way down to the ground, that is one eggplant bush. Oh, look at that. Check it out. Look at that guy. Check out that guy. I'm gonna have to figure out what variety this is so I know when to pick it, but that's a pretty good looking eggplant there. Amazing. Maybe I'll get my first one off this plant. We'll see. This is a new plant for me this year. This is Amaranth, and it's doing really well in full sun. So if you need something to plant in full sun, now I will say I planted about 4 of these. This is what one of them looks like. This is what the second one looks like. And then there's this beautiful happy one in the middle. So I don't know, maybe it got more water. Not really sure, but this is definitely the happiest of them. My blackberry bush is doing okay over there. It seems to be surviving, which is good enough for me. And this is, see, all of you were real worried about my mint earlier this year. See, Texas heat will beat it back. Texas heat and Texas winters can keep even mint at bay, at least for a little bit. So I do keep a really close eye on it, but I don't worry about the mint too much because I like mint and I keep it out of the main garden bed and it's fine. Don't know if y'all remember me planting these, but these are my sweet potatoes. So I think this is a variety. I just planted whatever I had in my that came from the grocery store. So I don't actually know what variety this is or anything. I do know it's good eating. It's a grocery store variety, and it does seem to be growing well here. I mean, Texas is a really good environment for sweet potatoes, but it's not rooting, which I think is a good thing. That's weed. But it is doing much better. So these sweet potato plants were in a decent amount of distress when I first planted them. And I thought, oh man, we're not going to get any sweet potatoes out of this. And we may still not. They've been under a lot of stress. I'm trying to find the base of the plant. They've been under a lot of stress this summer. So there's just a lot of, not a lot of water and a lot of heat. I don't see any sweet potatoes in here yet. These were the last ones I planted though. So I think, yeah, I'm just seeing roots down a little to see if I could find any roots, but I don't see any sweet potatoes on the roots yet. So I'm hoping that these will produce, but these are my kind of least likely to produce. They haven't vined as much as the other ones. They went in a little later and a little more toward the kind of hot part of the year. So we'll see, but they're probably at 60 or 70 days would be my guess. I think I planted them about a month after the other ones, and I'll show you how the other ones are doing. I was talking earlier about how well my basil is doing, and this guy is in pretty regular sun. I think it's still doing pretty well. I mean, it's got obviously some distress down here. Dirty hands. Obviously some distress down at the bottom, but the top of it still looks pretty happy and healthy. This is that cardinal basil, which just seems to handle the pressures of Texas heat. This, on the other hand, is Genoese basil that was in sun. Any amount of sun. It's just, sun is just too much for Genoese basil in Texas anyway. And so this guy should have been in absolutely full shade, and I underestimated the amount of shade that was over in this part of the yard. So this one got a little more distress, and I'm just saving it for seed at this point. Okay, I did not water these guys for about a week, and I just watered them today, so hopefully they'll perk up. But particularly these flowers that are in the sun, this is just what happens after a week of not watering a pot in Texas. This side's okay because it's in mostly shade, but this side is same flower is in distress because it was in full sun, or not, well, pretty close to full sun. It doesn't get morning sun, but it gets a lot of heavy duty afternoon sun. And the pot itself gets hot and dries out. Honestly, I just need to get those on an automated watering system, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And so if I then also don't get around to coming out and watering it every other day, it can go into a little bit of distress. And I've lost a few plants, but it's mostly just flowers at this point, and my strawberry plants, and they seem to be eking through so far. So if I were to kind of prioritize getting one of these with water in it, it would be the strawberry plants, because those are the ones that I want to last for a few years. So let's take a look at those real quick. Actually trying to produce strawberries, though little tiny sad ones, which I really should just pick off. I know that's the policy in northern climates, is the first kind of year of strawberries you pick them off so that the plant can put energy into staying alive, and isn't so focused on trying to produce a baby strawberry. This is interesting. Something is like eating the berry out of the center. So, that's a different problem. But yeah, these are my hopefully future strawberries. Another thing, and I've mentioned this before, is strawberries send off these runners, and that's actually a new little plant right there. And so what I'll do is I'll actually take the runners out, and I'm going to pot them up and put them inside, and try to grow a bunch of baby strawberry plants, and hopefully fill this whole green stalk with strawberry plants for next year. And we'll have some sort of generational strawberry plants going. I think we can kind of gloss over that. There is my former zucchini bed. Pretty much everything's dead in there. My eggplant bed over there is definitely having a bit of a struggle. It's not in great condition, but the eggplant bushes are still alive, just not producing anything. I think it's just too hot. And this guy is also, it's getting sun a lot more of the day. It's about 9 a.m. right now. Yeah, 9:20. That guy's already getting sun, and it will get sun for almost the whole day. And that's a lot of sun for a plant in Texas in the summer. This guy, on the other hand, is doing great. It won't get sun until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And while I would recommend, if I were to do this again, and if I get around to it, maybe I will, putting down some mulch, because this is really dry, and this is on an automated watering system, so it does get watered, but this is pretty dry. It's not holding moisture as well. The soil's just not holding moisture as well, and I really probably should put some sort of mulch over the top of this. Straw would be ideal, but again, I just really haven't gotten around to it. It's hot, y'all. It's a really hot season. There's also some weeds in here probably need to pull, that are probably sucking, a little bit of moisture that's in the soil out. But yeah, that's one of my sweet potato beds, and it is doing pretty well. I mean, all of these vines going in 3 directions are all related to this one plant. And so I know that overall, the plant has to be pretty healthy. The question is just whether it's actually producing any roots or not. Oh, well, that's interesting. We don't want that above the ground. There's a sweet potato root. Well, I guess we know it's producing roots. I might go get some soil and put that over these. All right, gonna leave the hose on that for a minute, and then I'm gonna come back with something to cover that poor sweet potato up. We're not talking about the Johnson grass. We're just not. Yep, not talking about it. All right. These sweet potatoes, I think, are my happiest and my healthiest. This whole bed here is basically sweet potatoes. I did see, and there's some evidence here, I think something is coming in and actually digging up and eating my sweet potatoes, which is just, I'm like, come on. But it's only eaten a couple of them. There was one I saw, and maybe it was that one. There was one that I saw that something had nibbled on one that was sticking out of the ground. So I'm hoping that was the only one, and they're leaving the rest of them alone. That soil's a little dry, so I'm going to water that as well today. But this seems to be the healthiest, happiest of my sweet potato bushes. See how the vines are going all the way down the back over there, and they're spreading out and even going into that rose bush next to them. Um, I think these are the healthiest and happiest. The soil is really deep, the container is shaded, and it's getting a decent amount of shade in both the morning, just kind of speckled light in the morning, then a little bit mid morning sun. Mid afternoon, it gets a little bit of shade. It gets some kind of early afternoon sun, and then the late evening afternoon sun it is protected from. So I think that's kind of the ideal environment. This fig bush is doing really well. The bush itself is really happy. It still has a ton of fruit on it. I'm not getting a lot of the fruit. Um, my office is actually right back there through that window. And I have seen while I'm on conference calls squirrels in the background stealing figs. It's very distracting during a conference call. You want to go yell at the squirrel, uh, but you can't because you're on a conference call. So anyway, the squirrels are definitely stealing my figs, but there's still a ton of figs on here, so maybe one day I will get some. We shall see. Well, that's a fairly quick garden tour before things get too hot out here. Just thought I'd walk you through what, if it is well insulated from the heat and well watered, can survive Texas summers. We'll see how it does in August. I would say August is going to be really rough, but I don't think it's going to be any worse than July was this year. So it's possible if these things have already survived this long, if we can keep them well watered, they will continue to survive through the rest of the summer, and then hopefully we get some crop from them in the fall, and or we pull out those things and the soil will have been protected by these plants, and we will have fresh soil to work on in the fall and plant some things. I need to do that video very soon. I will. I'm going to put together a video on all the seeds and things that I'm planning on planting in the fall, and I'll get that launched as soon as possible because some of those things you actually need to start from seed indoors probably this week in order to get them in the ground mid to late September. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Also, if I know I hesitate to ask because it feels weird, I guess, because I'm a very early YouTuber. But I would really appreciate if you subscribe, like, comment, especially comment. I'm trying to build a community of folks that are kind of facing similar garden conditions. So if you can comment and we can kind of form a discussion and start talking about it. I've learned so much from other gardeners and folks that comment on this channel and other people that are kind of going through the same things with, distressed weather conditions. And I would love to have more of that. So any kind of insights that you can provide, things that you've grown, or before my next garden video, which I'm working on right now, any seed or like plant recommendations for fall gardens in, kind of a similar zone 8B, but really long season. I think our first frost date is somewhere in December. And so we've still got like 100 and some odd days in our season, kind of depending on when the frost date is. And they've been pretty late lately, like I think mid-December maybe last year, or at least I could have covered them and done a kind of later into the winter garden. So any thoughts and insights that you have, I'd really appreciate it. I'd love to share it with the community, and maybe there's something that I haven't ever grown that I could try out this fall. All right, I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye.